Jordan Addison is on the Minnesota Vikings. Heath, I remember watching Kenny Pickett film in 2022 and seeing Jordan Addison. Well, I guess it's 2021 film. Jordan Addison was making plays for him at Pitt. And I started thinking to myself, this guy's going to be amazing in the pros, could be a number one wide receiver in the NFL, plays bigger than he is. He's got great speed. He can pick up yards after the catch. And now here he is a full year later in Minnesota. The number 2 receiver in Minnesota is going to be Jordan Addison. So many questions to get to. So let's just start with this. How excited are you about Addison being in Minnesota? They were a little more pass heavy last year in redraft. Where do you stack up Addison against the other rookie wide receivers who have been taken through the first 23 or so picks?
He's the clear number one for me. He has Justin Jefferson there. That's one guy that he has to beat out for targets. I don't think KJ Osborne will be a problem for him. The KJ Osborne hype was fun for the couple of months that we had it, but I would expect Addison to be the clear number 2. We saw Adam Thielen at 33 years old or 32 years old last year earn 107 targets in this offense next to Justin Jefferson. I would not be surprised if more targets go to Addison than what Thielen earned last year. I think he's a number 3 wide receiver and about 10 spots higher than any other rookie for me.
That's interesting. And I don't know if I can really argue that, because I think that he's a good wide receiver. So good talent, number 1. Minnesota certainly used some pretty high draft capital to get him, number 2. They've got themselves a heck of a passing game now because of Jefferson. It's going to be impossible for teams to consistently double team him. And they still have TJ Hawkinson. And I think they throw the ball around just enough for all 3 of those guys, Jefferson, Hawkinson, Addison. And I think that's the order I would draft them in redraft, to each come through for anywhere between, well, not in the case of Jefferson, but for Hawkinson and for Addison, around 100 targets, maybe 105 targets. And then Justin Jefferson, I still think he goes through the roof. He's awesome. He's still going to be a super wide receiver. But I say that very easily. Do you still look at Justin Jefferson as a surefire 150 target monster stat guy that you would take at the 101 in 2023 leagues?
I mean, I think he's right in that conversation with Jamar Chase. That the edge that he had over Chase for me was that Chase had to share with Higgins, and Jefferson didn't have that really good first-round quality wide receiver that he had to share with. I'm not 100% sure that Addison's going to be that, but if Addison is that, then that gives Chase the chance to be number 1. He's still going to be a top 2 pick for me. It will be Chase or Jefferson. This impacts TJ Hawkinson for me more than it does Justin Jefferson, because unlike Mark Andrews, I think TJ Hawkinson is someone who benefits from having less competition. I think Andrews' role's secure. Hawkinson's might be a little bit more dependent upon who's available in the lineup. With Jefferson and Addison working in the same area of the field as Hawkinson, I'm a little worried about him being tight end 3.
And let's just put it out there. Justin Jefferson last year, forget about 150 targets, 184 targets that led to 128 catches, just over 1,800 yards and 8 touchdowns. I got to figure those numbers come down a little bit, especially the target numbers. Not so sure that he is a lock to be the 101 for me in redraft PPR leagues. But I think this is good for Kirk Cousins. And I think that if no one's going to be excited to draft Kirk Cousins, who's walking into their draft saying, I'm going to get Kirk Cousins? Literally nobody. But if you are inclined to get one of the quarterbacks that have some risk to them, Deshaun Watson, Aaron Rodgers, Tua Tagovailoa, we can throw Anthony Richardson in this mix. I think putting Kirk Cousins in that same group, I think it makes sense. He could be kind of a backstop quarterback for your fantasy team, and certainly a priority number 2 quarterback in Superflex and 2 QB leagues. Where does Addison rank for you in Dynasty, Heath Cummings?
It's going to take some soul searching over the next 24 hours. I'm releasing my top 12 rookies tomorrow night, and it's really tough between him and JSN. One of those 2 guys will be wide receiver 1. I will probably still stick with JSN at wide receiver 1, Addison wide receiver 2. But the edge that Addison has, at least in my projections initially, for year 1, makes it hard for me to put JSN ahead of Addison.
I get that. I get that for sure. I'm just a little bit nervous about will Jordan Addison ever be what Justin Jefferson is, where he's just the alpha in his offense. Not as long as Jefferson's there. And so that makes me a little bit worried about that ceiling for Jordan Addison. And I think that, especially in PPR leagues, I think Smith and Jigba might have a better ceiling. Addison might be more steady, but Smith and Jigba might be able to eventually catch him in Seattle. I think Quentin Johnson could end up being the number one receiver for Justin Herbert ultimately over the next 5 years, not necessarily just 2023. I think he's got a little bit more potential. I think Zay Flowers, particularly if Lamar Jackson can get his passing tuned up a little bit, I think he could be better too. So I'm with you. I'm not sure how I feel about it, but I'm almost pretty sure that Jordan Addison will not be my number one wide receiver in dynasty leagues. But it's an interesting fit, and it's going to be an interesting offense in Minnesota. They are certainly looking to outscore their opponents across the board in 2023 and beyond. We're here to help you win your fantasy football leagues. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button so you can get the advice you need, not just during this offseason, but in the preseason and into the regular season from CBS Sports Fantasy Football Today here on YouTube.